Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. Sorry for yesterday not having a video, but not really much change from what I initially said from last week. So I figured, it was not too bad to miss that day regardless. So anyways, ending the day today, Tesla down about 3.6%, puts us at $776.39, right? So essentially from last week is pretty much what I said so far is playing out. How I said, probably find resistance at the top of this bear flag, which I still believe we're in, probably get retraced down to. Now I'm personally still hoping to see somewhere around this kind of 740 level, because again, that's the gap fill. That'll be the retest of the breakout being the red line. Technically possible we go to the blue line, though I don't think we will. I think we'll get a nice bounce off of this red line, probably come back up to this kind of, maybe 800-ish, give or take region, maybe high 700s, something like that. And I think we'll consolidate there for a while, maybe come retest the top of the channel one more time. But ultimately, guys, again, unless we really break through this channel and really start getting some beautiful closures above, I'm overall net bearish. Obviously, you can still be bullish within the shorter time frame of that, but net bearish, right? Which means overall for the longer time period, like for the next few months, as opposed to maybe the next week or two, I am bearish. But that doesn't mean we can't be bullish for like, a week, maybe two, something like that. And I am slowly starting to get a little bit more bullish. I did sell one put today. Unfortunately, the premium is just horrible right now. So I'm not really going too crazy with it. I sold one put for like 730, I think it was, for this Friday. Again, horrible premiums, really not worth a whole lot, but better than nothing, I guess. So essentially, I'm pretty much banking on the fact that we most likely, if we do come down here, we'll just bounce off of this, at least this week. Like, I don't think we'll fall below this week, and I don't think that should be too much of an issue. If it is, again, I'm literally at full cash at the very moment. I'll buy some shares, not a huge deal, and I'll have some shares relative to my portfolio, since again, literally all cash. But nonetheless, guys, taking a look at the major kind of indicators that we want to take a look at, right? Of course, being the EMA 21. Sitting exactly where I just talked about, pretty much dead smack on that specific situation. We have the Bollinger Band approaching where I personally think we will most likely meet the white line, being pretty much around the 740 gap fill and the retest of the red line breakouts. The 50-day moving average, which is an important one, is a bit lower, but I don't think we'll get there just yet. And then, of course, we have the 10-day moving average, which is just barely below us, and now we are below the 5-day moving average. So if we continue closing below the 5-day moving average, that's one tick so far that shows us that we are entering potentially a little bit more bearish territory, though. I personally use the 5-day moving average a little bit less, I put a little bit less weight on it. I think the 10 is a little bit more better because the 5 is just, it's too short time frame. I think the 5-day moving average is better on a shorter time frame as well. However, on the daily, the 10-day moving average is not too bad in my opinion. So again, it's pretty close to where I think we're going to be bouncing off of right now. It's currently sitting at 756. I think we'll get to potentially 740, somewhere in that general range between 740 to 756, I guess in this case, right? Give or take. I think is going to be most likely where the demand zone should, in theory, be, unless of course something crazy happens. Google should be reporting earnings. Microsoft reported earnings down about 2%. Shopify, by the way, guys, I don't know if you're paying attention. Walmart completely got smashed. Shopify getting smashed today as well. Let me show you an example of what a good example of a false breakout, right? So this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? You can see here, might have a sneeze coming up, but nonetheless, you can see Shopify here, right? It's kind of in this trading zone right here. It had a beautiful breakout. In theory, could have came back down to retest right here. And so far, it seemed like it's successfully retesting it, but then out of nowhere, boom, right? So we had a few days closure, and this actually looked good. This looked bullish, and then the earnings came out and it got smacked down and we're all the way down here. So this is an example of what this market can sometimes do, and why I always tell people to be careful, because this can happen with Tesla, something like this as well, right? Some hit piece comes out for Elon or whatever, like maybe Shanghai shuts down again for COVID purposes, maybe even monkeypox, whatever the case may be. This is a perfect example of why sometimes things cannot always be as they seem, and you got to be really, really careful, which is why I always give people caution, right? So again, same thing with Tesla here. Even if we break above and start closing a little bit above this bear flag line, the top blue line, still be very cautious, right? Be very, very cautious, because again, something like this can also happen to Tesla. So just kind of, food for thought, take it as you will, of course, not financial advice, make your own decisions, all that stuff. But that's kind of what I'm seeing at the moment. And this is why I'm also just being extremely cautious, because ultimately, guys, I personally still believe that we are going to be most likely falling out of this bear flag to the south side, and most likely, again, coming over to my range of 550 to 450, which I know sounds crazy. I know everyone's like, no, that's impossible, man. Look at Tesla. Tesla's amazing. It is. The company is fantastic. I love it. But don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore the products, the company, everything about it almost, right? It's phenomenal. It really is, which is why it's the only stock I personally care about. But with that being said, again, too many people are tunneled on just Tesla. In my opinion, there's much more prominent issues present right now, given essentially, the macro environment, the economy, inflation, all that stuff, right? Interest rate hikes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Potentially, again, monkeypox got declared, pretty much a pandemic, a level pandemic or something like that. I think over the weekend, it's just like things can happen out of nowhere, right? And again, given the state of the overall macro right now, the macro environment, like, in my opinion, it's more than Tesla. It's not just Tesla. It's not just how well is Tesla doing or this or that. I personally think there's bigger issues that can drive the stock, in my opinion, of course. We'll see. Nonetheless, pretty much what I'm expecting. Like I said, overall, again, I still don't think we're ready to downtrend just yet. I personally think the most of August actually can still be fairly bullish, and the main reason for that is simply because the RSI still looks fantastic on the daily. I really do think the RSI looks fantastic. Personally, though, I do think we're going to potentially slowly start making potentially like a bearish divergence. I think that might start becoming a bit of an issue, but as it stands this very moment, the RSI still does not look bearish on the daily chart. It still looks like overall it net wants to continue going up to a certain level until something really starts forming. For instance, as an example, if we do bounce off of here and let's say we come back up here to this roughly same level of 840 to retest the top line, but the RSI doesn't pass like 66.5 or whatever this top was right here, we're now setting up a bearish divergence, right? That is a possibility, so just keep that in mind. But again, as of today, the RSI still looks pretty good, which is why I'm not overall bearish like for the kind of short term, if you will, or like super bearish, I guess, where I'm personally expecting a bounce, maybe a run up once again to touch this, top of the line one more time, things like that, because that's just what I personally think will happen. And the daily RSI personally just suggests that. The volume today was quite abysmal, of course, but sometimes it just kind of be like that, which is fine. Google actually is up, which is good for Google. They're actually up 3.5% so far, so we'll see what that turns into, which is fantastic. I did play a bit of SPY puts, didn't make too much. I don't like holding puts that much. I'm not a huge fan of buying options. I just like selling options, but nonetheless, made a bit of SPY puts. Again, sold a Tesla put as well, so now I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens. But looking at it on a slightly shorter time frame, let's see if we can notice anything interesting here. And the first and foremost thing to notice, I think on the 1 hour chart, guys, I think it's quite obvious, is of course a potentially bearish divergence setting up. You can see, even though the stock is still all the way up here, the RSI actually plummeted quite aggressively, even though the stock is still sitting well above these levels over here. So overall, I think it's setting up a bit of a bearish divergence for the short term. Again, it's a 1 hour chart. It is the short term, which essentially just means the next maybe week, let's say, maybe the rest of this week, something like that. I think it'll be a net bearish trend, which I personally think will just simply lead us to the retest that I've talked about around that kind of 740-ish level. And then from there, we can most likely get a nice bounce. It could potentially set up a little bit of a bull flag right here as well, which will coincide with the retest as well. So that's something I'm definitely going to be looking for, right? It could be something like this, for instance, right? Again, this is just a rough example. Don't take this too hard, but it could be something kind of like this, give or take, right? Maybe something like this. I don't know exactly how it's going to form yet, but we could be setting up some kind of bull flag or pennant or something like that, like this, right? So just keep that in mind. That is something to consider, but of course we'll see how it forms as it does form. But overall, that is what I'm currently expecting. Taking another quick look on the 15-minute chart as well, you can see the RSI very, very low over here. Even though the stock is still chilling around 770s, the RSI is way, way down here. So overall, I think we are still setting up a slightly bearish divergence for the short term, which then I think leads to the bounce off 740, which I think overall by the time we do that, this should start showing a bullish divergence instead, which will flip us bullish, which I think will flip us to potentially rally up to, again, somewhere around that level of 840, I think it was, give or take. Yeah, somewhere around 840. And then I think from there we'll get resisted, probably fall, and ultimately head lower somewhere at the end of August is what I'm currently projecting. So in case you want to just get a very rough idea, I said this last week before we really started falling. Ultimately, I expect something like this to happen, right? Something like this, right? That's kind of what I'm expecting at the very moment. Just very, very rough example. So we'll see how it plays out, but that's my current thought process. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think down below. And yeah, none of this is financial advice as usual. Make your own decisions, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.